Hey girl gang, it's Dr. Joy here and you are watching Delivering Joy MD TV. Welcome to Well Woman Wednesday. I have such an amazing guest for you all today and you don't want to miss this. We're talking about how obesity can affect women's health and particularly PCOS. Make sure you keep watching. So we're back. And today I have a very special guest joining me, somebody that I've had an opportunity to work closely with, who is a board certified internal medicine physician and also a board certified obesity medicine physician, Dr. Alicia Shelley. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Joy, for having me on. I'm so excited to be able to talk about obesity today.
So how did you get started in obesity medicine? I know it's something that's kind of a newer field in medicine. How did you get engaged and involved in this?
So it's very interesting because I actually have suffered with obesity since childhood. It's something that I've been trying to overcome and struggle with. I, like most Americans, have tried these fad diets, like the lemonade diet to lose weight, and then eventually, restricting my calories, exercising more, and so what I found was that I was going up and down. Like I'd lose weight, gain weight, lose weight. And so eventually I got to the point where I underwent bariatric surgery. And so I was able to lose a good 80 pounds initially with the surgery, but then the weight started creeping back up again. And so at that time, I was internal medicine, primary care doc, still am. But then my other patients were struggling too with obesity. And so I wanted to learn more so that not only can I help myself, but I can help others with trying to lose weight, because this is something that affects us on a day-to-day, affects how we feel about ourselves, affects our confidence, it affects our medical health. So what we found was that over 200 medical conditions are affected from having extra weight or having obesity. And so by at least helping with that, we can help people live better, healthier lives. So that's kind of a short way how I got into obesity medicine and how I've been fortunate to be able to help people in my community.
Wow, that is so amazing. I think that, this is something that a lot of people struggle with, particularly women and particularly Black women. We've seen where, the obesity rates have gone up and we're seeing more health complications. So I know that you're doing daily work with this at the Best Health Clinic. So tell us a little bit about what you do every day and how you help people.
Yeah, so I'm part of the Centers of Best Health at Wellstar. Here we have multiple locations throughout Georgia. We have locations in Cobb County, and we're opening up more docs too as well. So, and what we do at the center is that we help people with not only achieving sustainable weight loss they're able to maintain over time, but then also we're helping with them being healthier. We're helping them reduce their blood pressure, reduce their diabetes, reduce the osteoarthritis. And so we actually have a multidisciplinary approach where we offer a registered dietitian services, exercise physiologists, psychologists, weight loss psychologists that focus on the things that kind of make it more difficult for us to lose weight, like emotional eating, the cravings, how to overcome that. They help with that. We have support groups. We also are offering meal replacement services, and we work closely with our bariatric surgeons. So for some reason, if people feel like they need a little bit extra, they can be able to go to, we transfer them right over to our bariatric surgeons who take over their care. Also, we can prescribe medications that can help people with having that help with reducing their appetite, so you're not as hungry, you feel full throughout the day, and that helps with cravings. So we are really a one-stop shop where you can see multiple different people to help with not only losing weight, but it to be sustainable.
Wow, that is really amazing. I didn't even realize that the Best Health Clinic did all of that. So I'm excited for us to bring one to West Georgia because I think we could really use it here. So stay tuned, everybody. I'm definitely talking to Dr. Shelley and picking her brain about how we can get that going for our viewers here in West Georgia and for all of our community members. So you mentioned medications, Dr. Shelley, and I'm telling you, I see so many people in a day who are coming in like, oh, I want some Ozempic. Doc, can I have some Ozempic? And a lot of times, folks are not really aware of how these medications work, what the risks and the benefits are. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So now I would like to let the viewers know Ozempic has been out since 2017 and it's FDA approved for diabetes. And what I found, especially when it came out, was that it was so helpful and not only bringing down people's blood sugar, but it actually was helpful in allowing them to not to feel as hungry, to help them feel full, and it helped to reduce their cravings. So it really kind of targeted those appetite hormones. And so what happened, the company that made Ozempic actually started doing more research, and came out with a similar medication for weight loss. And so that medication is called Wegovy. Is actually, the generic is the same as Ozempic, but it's specifically, Wegovy is specifically for weight loss. So you don't have to have diabetes to get it. How it works, it's very similar to Ozempic, where it works at the level of the gut. It slows down motility, so you're not as hungry. When you eat, you feel full. And when you going throughout the day, you don't have those cravings. Like you may necessarily, know you need to eat, but you're not like, oh my gosh, I have to eat like high carbs. I need all these sweets. You're like, no, I'm fine. I'm good. I'm not as hungry. So it really is helpful. Unfortunately, the reason why it's become such a big craze was that although it's come out in 2021, Wegovy it's been on back order probably more times than it has been available. And so it's been kind of difficult to get. So, which has made people more apt to kind of go to Ozempic, because Ozempic is readily available. So that's why a lot of people are trying to get that Ozempic. But Wegovy is the medication that can be used for all people who are above a body mass index of greater than 27, which have a medical comorbidity such as high blood pressure, diabetes, or a person who has a BMI of greater than 30.
Okay, and so that kind of explains the whole Ozempic craze. Yeah. And one thing I've also noticed from patients that have come in who want to try this method for weight loss is that it's expensive. It's really expensive. And so the insurance coverage is not as good for Wegovy as it is for Ozempic. So sometimes we see that. How do you work around that in your clinic when you're dealing with patients who specifically might need medication-assisted weight loss?
Yeah, so it is hard because not all insurances cover weight loss medications. And so this is a plug to our Congress people, or also even to our employers, to be able to offer this opportunity for your workers and for your employers, because a lot of times, like the different companies, they have an option to add on what we call an obesity rider. So basically meaning that they'll cover weight loss medications, but a lot of them decline. So I would say if your company does not cover it, definitely write a letter, get people to sign a petition to your human resources so that they can get this covered. The one thing I would say for our Georgia, Georgia state of Georgia, is that they actually started covering for the state health benefit plan for our state employees, like our teachers and things of that nature. They actually now cover medications, weight loss medications. So they cover Wegovy, which is really nice that we're able to do that for our state health benefit plan. But we needed to have more people to be covered. So how I go about it is, somebody has pre-diabetes or diabetes, sometimes their insurance may be able to cover Ozempic, because Ozempic, like I said, is FDA approved for diabetes. So if they have that, sometimes their insurance will be able to cover that, and we'll just have to do a prior authorization in order to get that covered. But if it's not covered, then sometimes that makes it a little bit more difficult. We do have other medications other than Wegovy and Ozempic to help with weight loss, and that are more cost affordable. So I would offer people options on what we could do.
I think that's really important for people to be able to have options. And I love what you said about getting employers to cover these sorts of medications, because I think not only medications, but also weight loss surgery in some cases is a part of that obesity rider where folks, and the real thing here that kind of just doesn't make any sense to me is that we know that obesity is related to so many medical conditions, right? And so we know that employers actually pay more if people are suffering from obesity and develop a lot of these medical conditions than they would if we all pitched in to help people live a healthier lifestyle. So
yeah, they'll be saving money.
Yeah, saving money by allowing folks to get assistance with weight loss, because we all know that weight loss can be very difficult. You probably know the stats way better than I do, but I remember reading somewhere that if people had over 75 pounds to lose, that only 15% of those people who had that much weight to lose would actually do it on their own, like without any sort of assistance. So I was like, wow, the numbers are kind of stacked against you here.
It is. When we look at the studies about how much people are able to lose weight with just diet and exercise alone, it's low. It's like 5 to 10% of your body weight that you're losing. But when you add on medications, specifically Wegovy, you're losing up to an average of 15%. And people lose more and some people lose less. So you really see an added benefit by adding on these medications. And when you add even on weight loss surgery, now you're losing even more percentages of your weight. So you lose between 50 to 60% of your excess weight loss with weight loss surgery. So this, and then imagine if somebody who has extra weight or who has obesity, they're at risk for stroke, heart attacks, high blood pressure, they're at risk for diabetes. So if we can reduce that risk and reduce them from developing it, I mean, we're saving money from complications of diabetes, complications from high blood pressure. People are living longer lives. And then not only longer lives, they're more healthier. So by losing the weight. So employers could actually stand to gain money just by covering these medications.
So if you're a business owner out there and you're watching, don't say no to the obesity rider. We need that. And it's so frustrating, especially like when you're trying to help people live a healthier lifestyle and they're struggling and you don't have anything, any tools in your toolkit to offer them. So Dr. Shelley, when you are talking to people about medication versus surgery when it comes to their weight loss, what kind of guides you in your management, and what things you recommend to your patients at the Best Health Center?
Yeah, so at the Centers of Best Health, we definitely, it's an individualized approach, so everyone's different. And we kind of, in the initial consultation, we kind of see where the person is. We look at their history, their weight loss history. We look at where their current eating habits are, their current exercise habits. How is their stress? How is their sleep? Because this all plays a role. And then we talk about what are our options and what we're able to, and what people are willing to do. Some people don't necessarily want to take any medications. I just want to do this on my own. And if that's the case, we support them. But for some people who have been on medications, they've been trying on their own, and they're just not seeing the success, and they definitely need to lose a large amount of weight, then I would recommend for them to see the bariatric surgeon. And by seeing that bariatric surgeon, they'll be able to get more information, and they'll be able to hopefully get the surgery to lose a large amount of weight that they need, that they may not be able to lose with just medications alone.
Okay, I think that is something that I've been talking a lot more about, is weight loss surgery with some of my patients. Folks who have a large amount of weight to lose and who are already dealing with diabetes and hypertension and other health problems at a very young age. For my population, it's mainly, women of childbearing age that I'm seeing, but sometimes even women who have passed their childbearing years who really do need to lose some significant weight. So I think weight loss surgery is a great tool. I don't know if I told you, but I had weight loss surgery in 1999. And it totally changed the trajectory of my life. Being able to get healthier. I had a lot of medical problems growing up, and a lot of those were due to having obesity. So I'm a big fan of ways to help people achieve healthy weight loss. Um, you know, I question this, and I wonder how you see it. I have a lot of young ladies who come into my office who are thin, not underweight, but just, probably a normal healthy weight, but they want to be larger. They say, I want to go on the depot, Dr. Baker, because I want to be, I want to gain some weight. I want to be thick. So, when you're talking to folks about that sort of mindset and that idea, because I think that some of the things that maybe culturally are appropriate, everybody wants the big, brick house figure, but that might actually be too much weight for their frame. And so how do you sort of help people through that mindset of like thinking about what is actually healthy for me, or even coming to the conclusion that I'm not just thick, I have obesity?
Yeah. So a lot of times the tools that we have to help people with seeing where they are, such as the body mass index or the BMI. Also, we look at people's waist circumference and how much what we describe as fat that's around the organs or visceral fat. When they come into our office, we do like an assessment. We do your waist circumference. We have you stand on a scale where we get what's your body fat percentage. And we kind of outline where they are. We show them like, this is where you are as far as your BMI. This is where we need to be more healthier. Now, we'll talk about it. A lot of times BMI is a little controversial, may not necessarily be as accurate for all races, but it gives you an idea or a sense of where you are and what your risk is down the line. Because a lot of times when we're trying to lose weight, it's not to prevent, a stroke tomorrow, it's to prevent a stroke maybe 10, 20 years from now, or to prevent diabetes from developing 10 or 20 years from now. So sometimes it's important because some people love the way they are, and that's fine. But you have to, I have this one gentleman, and I'll just share the story. His wife brought him in because she's like, you need to lose weight. I'm worried that you're not going to be here for me. But if you talk to him, he's like, I'm fine. And so a lot of times, but he was in the obesity category. And so how I talked about it, it wasn't about, losing weight. It was like, how would you feel if you were 20 pounds lighter? How would you feel if you were back at the weight you were, outside of college? And so when we talked about kind of the effect of losing weight and how we would feel, I was able to get him on board. And the funny thing is we don't do any medications with him. But he was able to lose weight just for changing his appetite, changing his diet, changing his lifestyle. And then he comes in and he tells on his wife, he's like, well, my wife's not doing it. So it's a funny dynamic. But when he lost the weight, I asked him, well, how did you feel? He's like, I felt great. I had more energy, and I'm definitely glad that I did this. And so sometimes for people who don't necessarily feel like they need to lose weight just to look good, we have to focus on what's their reasoning for losing weight, which is, hey, I want to live longer. I want to feel better. I want to have more energy. I don't want to feel sluggish. And that's kind of how we go about that as far as with the mindset piece.
I love how you did that. You just kind of flipped it, and it's like, oh, you'll feel, what if you felt better? What if you had more energy? What if you could go back to your glory days, right? Or what you seem to picture as your glory days. I think that's a great idea. I think that too, sometimes our cultural aesthetic is a little bit different in the Black community. So, everybody wants to have a certain size or figure or shape. And so I know I often talk to my younger ladies about, what's actually a healthy weight, and how, being larger is not necessarily better for their frame that they're carrying this weight on. So we talk about it a lot, but I'm always curious as to how other people broach this subject with their patients, because it's an interesting thing, like what people think in terms of how they look and how they feel about themselves. So it can be very interesting. I had a patient that came in for some issues that she was having, and she ended up needing some surgery to correct these issues. And when I first met her, she was thin. And she was a healthy weight. Her BMI was in the normal range. But after she got this issue corrected, she started gaining weight. And she came in And I was like, wow, like I was kind of amazed when I saw her the next time, because it was maybe about 3 or 6 months later, and she had gained a good 30 pounds at least. And so I said, how have you been doing? And she said, oh, I'm great. You see how big and fine I am now? Like I was so skinny before you helped me. And I was just thinking to myself, like, whoa, no. So we had to have that conversation. Like, now you're kind of entering a danger zone. You already had some medical issues before you started gaining this weight. And I think that you're going to see that these medical issues may become worse. So we had to have a talk about that. But in her mind and in her view of herself, she felt like, yeah, this is where I should be. And so it's a very interesting dynamic when you talk about that. I love that you mentioned that there is a weight loss psychologist there. And so when you're talking to people about who they might become after losing a significant amount of weight, what are some of those conversations like?
So when you have bariatric surgery, because you lose a significant amount, usually on average, people are losing 50 to 60% of their excess weight loss. And excess weight is basically what your weight should be minus where you're starting. So for example, if your weight should be 150 and you're starting at 250, then your excess weight loss is 100 pounds. And so 50% of that would be 50 pounds of weight loss. And that's actually pretty significant. Like you can really tell when somebody loses even like 5 to 10% of their body weight, you can tell, but 50% you can really see that, or 50 pounds, you can really see that. And so a lot of times when people, and it's important, especially after bariatric surgery, that you discuss kind of the changes in relationships, because sometimes your spouse may not see anything wrong with you. They may have loved you when you were a larger weight. And so now that you've lost weight, their attraction for you may be different. They may look at you different. They may feel like, okay, they may be self insecure. They may feel like, oh, now you're going to go and cheat on me because you're this thin. And so we find that for actually, like when people who come into bariatric surgery married, a certain percentage of them actually end up divorced. And people who come into bariatric surgery single, a percentage of them end up with getting married. So it really plays a difference in your relationships. And it's something we don't talk about often, but as humans, we are very physical. And so a lot of times we put our insecurities in things. And so if I wanted you to be a certain size and you're not a certain size, now I'm not attracted to you anymore. And so I'm going to leave. So it is important that we have that conversation about how your relationships would change. And maybe it's not even your spouse. It could be your friends who are like, well, I feel self-conscious being around you now, so I'm just going to, go find new friends. So it's really unfortunate, but definitely relationships can change with weight loss.
I did an episode with a bariatric surgeon here in West Georgia, and I showed my pictures, my before and after pictures. And I've probably always had a lot of confidence anyway, but the picture after losing 100 pounds, wow, you could just tell. I mean, I had it all going on. I had on like this kind of like snakeskin pantsuit with like red lipstick, and I'm like standing outside my dorm room in college, like hands on my head, like, so you can tell that there is definitely a shift in the attitude that some people have. And that can be a positive shift or sometimes even a negative shift. I've had friends and colleagues who have lost a significant amount of weight and then dealt with a lot of excess skin, and had a hard time with that, and felt like maybe they looked better when they had, when they were a heavier weight because the skin was full at that point. So the psychological aspect is something that I think we don't talk about enough, so that people can sort of understand how that looks. Because a lot of times as physicians, we're saying lose weight, get healthy. But we have to kind of consider the whole person, the whole picture. And like you said, how relationships might change, how you identify yourself might change, how what you turn to when you're upset, if you're an emotional eater, if you have weight loss surgery, or even if you're on certain medications, eating is not going to give you that anymore. So there is that big that big mindset shift that has to occur. So that's really, really interesting.
Yeah, it makes a difference because sometimes people aren't used to having that attention, and now they have that attention, and they just go buck wild. Buck wild. You're like, what is going on? And the one thing we didn't talk about is the fertility that's affected by weight loss as well.
Yeah, I think that's super, super important topic. So a lot of times with obesity, I see a lot of folks who will suffer from polycystic ovarian syndrome or PCOS and may have trouble getting pregnant. So when you're dealing with these patients, how do you sort of approach them, and what kind of counseling or what kind of advice do you give?
Yeah, so definitely so the one thing I always start off with PCOS, it is due to the hormonal imbalance, it's very easy for those patients to gain weight, and it's really hard for them to lose weight. They have a lot of insulin resistance. And when I describe insulin resistance, it's basically when you eat food, your body breaks it down into sugar, and then it travels through the bloodstream to the different organs like your muscle, your heart, your lungs for energy. And so in order for that sugar to go from the bloodstream to the organs, to the heart, it actually needs the hormone insulin to open that door, to be that key to unlock it and open that door. However, in people who suffer with insulin resistance, and even though there's sugar in the bloodstream, the insulin is the wrong key. And so that sugar, the door is not opening, and the sugar is just staying in the bloodstream and causing more havoc. And so the body in its response is like, oh, well, maybe there's not enough insulin, so I'll just keep pushing it out. So now this person who has insulin resistance to start with has a high level of insulin, and in their bloodstream. And as we know with insulin, it can lead to more fat deposits. And so as it leads to more fat deposits, the person is gaining weight, and it makes it harder for that person to lose weight. So with PCOS, you see that. And so first off, I try to tell the patient is that this is not your fault. Right now, you have a condition that's causing you to be more insulin resistant, and it's causing you to gain more fat. So I number one want people to feel that way, because a lot of people come into my office and feel that the reason why they're not losing weight is because there's something they're not doing. Even though they've been on tons of diets, tons of exercise routines, personal trainers, all this stuff, all the different programs, it's the people internalize that there's something that I'm not doing. And so I want them to know that number one, they're not alone. And then number two, it's not your fault. And just to know for other people, there are many reasons why people gain weight. We talked about it, like with having medications like Depo, steroids, things of that nature. Having low thyroid or hypothyroidism can cause you to gain weight. And sometimes it can just be genetics. So once we set that table, the next thing is we kind of talk about why they are having difficulty with losing weight. And we talk about the insulin resistance. And then next, we talk about kind of what medications we can offer. The one thing that we probably all prescribe for PCOS is metformin. Because metformin definitely does help with kind of reducing insulin resistance, but then also it helps with the hormonal imbalance so that people can start to have more regular cycles. And then also there are other medications that are coming out that help with insulin resistance, such as Ozempic, Mounjaro. These medications we use for diabetes, but they can also reduce that insulin resistance, so allowing people to start to lose weight. And as they start to lose weight, they start to have a better fertility. They're starting to ovulate more. And it makes it a lot easier for them to not only lose weight, but then be able to get pregnant. And so when we look at people who've had bariatric surgery, when they lost a considerable amount of weight, they have less estrogen on board, and what happens is they start to have more fertility, and it makes more ovulation, which makes them at risk for getting pregnant. So a lot of times you have to tell people, hey, make sure you use protection, because you can get pregnant now that you've lost this weight. And we want to make sure you get pregnant at least a year after having the surgery, so you can get the benefit of the weight loss.
That is very important. That's something that in the field of obstetrics, we always are concerned about for our patients who have had weight loss surgery. We want them to kind of be at their weight plateau or a stable point before becoming pregnant, because we can see all sorts of vitamin deficiencies and problems when people become pregnant while they're still rapidly losing the weight. And the benefit, of course, that we want to see that the benefit in their health prior to them becoming pregnant as well. So those are all very, very good points. What sort of diet changes do you recommend for women who are suffering with PCOS? Because that's one that always kind of, I hear a lot about low carb diet, Mediterranean diet. So what is your advice on that?
Due to the insulin resistance, I always kind of recommend a lower carb diet, not as low as maybe keto, which is only 20 grams of carbs, but having where you're taking out your simple sugars, you're taking out like the cookies, the cakes, the sodas, cutting that out and kind of eating more of a balanced diet where you're having your protein, you have your veggies, you have a little bit of a starch. So it's not like you're completely depriving yourself, but you're just kind of, it's in more moderation per se. So I think the low carb diet would be better. I'm always for more clean eating, as you see in the Mediterranean diet, where you're having less of the meat and more lean meats like your turkey, your fish, and things of that nature. That definitely does help. But I think the lower in carbs is the best, is very helpful for people with PCOS.
So I usually talk to my patients about carb counting. So how many carbs do you think is appropriate for that?
Yeah. So I like the diabetic diet where it's like 45 grams per meal, 15 grams per snacks, because that still gives you some leeway. So if you wanted just a little bit of rice, or if you wanted like maybe some corn that's a little bit more starchy, you can have that. You don't feel like you're depriving yourself, and it makes it easier to maintain. A lot of times with the different diets, if they're too restrictive, you're not going to maintain it. So it's good to kind of I like to talk to them about that balance that we see with similar to the diabetic diet or the low carb diet.
Yeah, I like that too. I think the lower carbs really does help. And whenever I'm helping someone with fertility who has PCOS, I think that's something that really, I see real results with that. Even if the person doesn't lose a large amount of weight, it seems like their insulin resistance gets better, they ovulate better, and it's easier for them to actually achieve fertility. So one last question before we wrap up. When you are talking to folks with PCOS, do you recommend that they, obviously metformin is a tried and true, but do you recommend that they get on a Mounjaro or an Ozempic, or, which patients would you select for that?
I would as long as they have that insulin resistance, we could sometimes be able to finagle and get them on like at least Ozempic for sure. Mounjaro, they're very strict. So right now it's just diabetes only. But sometimes Ozempic, we can be able to get that covered by insurance. So I definitely would go first with that, just because it really has been shown to be helpful, and then they really can see a difference with their appetite. Now, we still use metformin to help not only with ovulation, but then also it can help with, curbing your carbohydrate cravings and things of that nature. But I do find that the Ozempic kind of gives us that next effort, which is now you're curbing your appetite. You're not as hungry. So I really would, if somebody meets the weight requirement or the BMI requirement, that would be my go-to to start with.
Okay, I really like that. I think that's another toolkit for us OB-GYNs to start adding to our practice, because I find that when we can help people with those cravings and to start to see some weight loss, they're usually encouraged to keep going, and we can also help them regulate those hormones and regulate ovulation and get pregnant. So I'm excited to have that. I'm so very grateful that you were able to join us today. I think that we all learned something today. And so if you are watching today and you want to find out how to get in touch with Dr. Alicia Shelley, click the description bar below and I will link her information there. I will also link the information to her podcast. Tell us about your podcast, Dr. Shelley.
Yes, so I host a podcast called the Back on Track Achieving Healthy Weight Loss podcast, where we have our experts and our guests who kind of share how we can live a healthier life by losing weight and give you tips and tricks on how to do that.
So definitely make sure you check that out, Girl Gang, because we always need good tips and tricks on how to live a better lifestyle and a healthier lifestyle. You can catch up with me at Delivering Joy on all social media platforms. Make sure you like and subscribe to this video if you're watching on YouTube, and we'll catch you next time. See you later, Girl Gang. Peace.